Understanding your body. Before you share your body with someone else, you must first come home to it yourself, not with shame, not with urgency, not because you feel behind, but because it's yours, and you deserve to know it. We grow up in a world that teaches us to look away, to hide, to cover, to be silent. We're taught about anatomy in the most clinical, detached way. Charts and labels, diagrams without feelings, names without meaning. But no one ever says, this is yours, and it's sacred. This deserves kindness, patience, discovery. You are allowed to understand yourself first. Understanding your body is not about being ready for sex. It's about being in relationship with yourself. To know what comfort feels like, what safety feels like, what yes and no feel like, not in your mouth, but in your skin. Because your body speaks long before your words do. And when you know its voice, you're never confused about what it needs. Start with curiosity, not judgment. Forget what you've been told about purity. Forget the guilt. Forget the fear-based warnings that said your body is dangerous. Because it isn't. It's wise, it's layered, it's alive. Start by asking, where do I carry tension? What kind of touch feels safe? Have I ever felt truly relaxed in my own skin? You don't need a partner to learn those answers. You just need stillness, attention, and the willingness to be curious. Touch your own hand, trace your own arm, not to arouse, just to feel. What's soft? What's sensitive? Where do you flinch? Where do you lean in? This is data. This is intimacy with yourself. Understand your anatomy, not just names, but experience. You've heard the words vulva, clitoris, vagina, penis, scrotum. But have you ever taken time to understand what they do, what they feel like, what they respond to? Understanding your body means more than memorizing names. It means tuning in. For those with vulvas, the clitoris is not a button, it's an organ. With over 8,000 nerve endings, it exists solely for pleasure. And yet most sex education doesn't even mention it. Why? Because we live in a world that fears women knowing their pleasure. A world that silences exploration. A world that rewards performance but punishes self-awareness. But you deserve to know where you feel good, what pressure feels nourishing, what rhythm calms you, what excites you. For those with penises, understanding your body isn't just about erections or release. It's about sensation, sensitivity, pacing, knowing how your arousal rises and falls without shame. Because the first time won't make space for you to learn if you haven't already learned what presence feels like inside your own body. This is why understanding your body matters, so that when you step into intimacy, you aren't lost, you aren't performing, you aren't mimicking a movie, you're showing up, fully, honestly, humanly. Learn to listen to your body's boundaries. Your body will tell you when something is off, when it tenses, when it holds its breath, when it pulls back, sometimes even when your mind says, go. Understanding your body means trusting those signals. They are not overreactions, they are wisdom. If your stomach clenches, if your heart races, if your chest tightens, pause. That pause is self-respect. That pause is protection. That pause might save you from a regret you never deserve to carry. No one teaches us that we can say no even after saying yes. No one teaches us that I'm not ready is a complete sentence. No one teaches us that the body is not always in sync with the heart. But when you understand your body, you become your own guide. Exploring doesn't make you impure. It makes you empowered. Touching your own body is not shameful. It's not dirty. It's not something to confess. It's how you learn. It's how you discover. It's how you reclaim your own story. You don't have to wait for someone else to give you permission to feel. You are allowed to be your own first lover. One who listens, doesn't rush, doesn't judge. Because if you've never given yourself tenderness, how can you ask it from someone else? Understanding your body means you set the standard. And when someone enters your life, they don't define your worth. They meet it. Know that your body will change. And that's normal arousal might not come easily the first time, or the second, or even the 10th. That doesn't mean you're broken. That means your body is unique. It needs slowness. It needs presence. It needs trust. Sometimes more than it needs touch. Hormones shift, cycles influence sensation, stress affects lubrication and blood flow. All of it is part of the picture. All of it is valid. Understanding your body means being patient with its evolution. You are not a machine. You are not expected to respond like anyone else. Your journey is yours, and your pace is sacred. You are allowed to be whole without sharing yourself. Lastly, understanding your body doesn't mean you owe it to someone else. It doesn't mean readiness must lead to sex. It simply means you know yourself now. You love yourself enough to wait until it feels right. You trust yourself more than you fear being judged. That is power. That is healing. That is preparation of the highest kind. So start with yourself, not with performance, not with pressure, with presence. Because the most beautiful first time is the one you enter already knowing, I know my body, and it is mine. Talking openly with your partner. There is something more intimate than touch, more vulnerable than skin, more powerful than any first-time experience. It's the ability to speak and be heard, without fear, without shame, without pretending. Because you can be naked with someone and still feel completely alone. But when you can talk openly, freely, and without hesitation, that's where true intimacy begins. Before the lights dim, before the clothes come off, before hands move and hearts race, the most important moment is the one where you say, "Can we talk first?" And if that person can't sit with you in conversation, they don't deserve to stand with you in something as sacred as sex. Ash. Why talking matters more than technique. So many people are terrified of having the talk, afraid they'll kill the mood, afraid they'll sound inexperienced, afraid they'll be laughed at, or worse, dismissed. But talking isn't awkward. Silence is. The kind that builds when someone doesn't know what you want, what you're afraid of, what feels good, or what doesn't. You're not supposed to read each other's minds. You're supposed to ask and listen. Communication is the difference between fumbling in the dark and moving with light, clarity, and care. Start before the moment begins. If you can't talk about sex outside of the bedroom, you're not ready to have sex inside it. So start when there's no pressure, when no one's aroused, when no one feels like they have something to prove. Ask simple but powerful questions. What does sex mean to you? What are you nervous about? Is there anything you're not ready for yet? What does a yes feel like for you? What does a no sound like? What would help you feel safe with me? And if you can ask those questions, and they can answer without judgment, you've already built a foundation stronger than most couples ever reach. Speak up about boundaries, yours and theirs. Boundaries aren't walls. They're invitations to build trust. They say, here's how to love me right. When you say, I don't want to be touched there, or I'm not ready for penetration, or I want to stop if I feel overwhelmed, you are not being difficult. You are being honest. And when your partner says, thank you for telling me, that's when you know you're with someone who sees you, not just your body, but your soul. Talk during, not just before, yes, during. Because sex isn't a scene, it's a dialogue, a constantly unfolding moment where both people are learning each other in real time. Whispers like, slower, that's good. Can you try this? Let's pause. These are not interruptions, they're navigation. You're not expected to get everything right the first time. Neither are they. But when you talk, really talk, you create a space where it's okay to mess up, laugh, adjust, and begin again. That's not clumsy, that's beautiful. Create a culture of check-ins afterward. When the breath slows and the stillness comes, don't just roll over and say goodnight. Say something more. How did that feel for you? Was anything uncomfortable? What did you like? What would you want more of next time? Is there anything we should talk about? These questions don't just make you a good lover, they make you a safe place. And when someone feels emotionally safe, the physical experience deepens naturally. Trust is foreplay. Communication is care. If you're scared to talk, that's your first sign. If you find yourself holding back, swallowing your truth, telling yourself it's not a big deal, ask why. Because it is a big deal if you feel unsafe speaking. It is a red flag if your partner shuts you down or rolls their eyes. It is your right to pause, walk away, or even change your mind completely. The person you have sex with should be someone you can speak to, laugh with, stumble through awkwardness beside. Someone who doesn't just want your body, they want you, fully expressed and fully honest. Your voice is the most powerful protection you have. There will always be moments of doubt, moments when your body says yes, but your heart says wait, moments when your partner is ready, but you're unsure. Moments when you want something different, slower, or softer. In those moments, use your voice. That is not weakness. That is self-honoring. That is what keeps you safe, grounded, and in control. Because no matter what anyone says, you don't owe silence to keep the mood. You don't owe your body to avoid awkwardness. You don't owe anyone your discomfort. You owe yourself truth. So talk, before, during, and after, with clarity, with kindness, with courage. Because your body is not a script, it's a story, and your voice is how you tell it. Let the words come before the touch. Let honesty come before action. Let connection come before performance. And when you do, you'll find that the first time doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Using lubrication and taking it slow. No one talks about how small things can change everything. A breath, a pause, a moment of eye contact, a bottle of lubrication. These aren't extras. These aren't accessories. These are the essentials, the quiet tools that turn a rushed, confusing, or painful first time into a gentle, conscious, and truly connected experience. Because real intimacy doesn't happen at high speed, it happens in slowness, in awareness, in listening to the body, yours and theirs, one signal at a time. So let's say this clearly, simply, without shame. Use lubrication. Take it slow. Always. Let's start with lubrication, why it matters. We've been taught to believe that if someone is aroused, their body will just be ready. That wetness or erection is the only signal of desire. But biology is not that simple. Stress, anxiety, hormones, hydration, birth control, fear, trauma, timing, all of these can affect natural lubrication. And that has nothing to do with attraction or desire. Just like a kiss doesn't need to be rushed, intimacy doesn't need to be raw. Friction without softness leads to pain. Lubrication changes that. It reduces discomfort. It makes movement smoother. It honors the body's need for gentleness, not force. Using lube isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of respect. It says, I want you to feel good. I don't want to hurt you well. I'm paying attention. And there are options. Water-based for safety with condoms, silicone-based for longer sessions, natural oils for slow exploration, as long as you're aware of what they interact with. Whatever you choose, choose it without shame. Because comfort is never something to apologize for. Now let's talk about the pace, the art of taking it slow. First-time sex should not feel like a race. It should feel like reading a poem out loud, one line at a time, savoring every word. Your body has its own pace, so does your partner's. And the only way to find it is by slowing everything down. Not just touch, but breathing. Not just action, but attention. Slowness isn't boring, it's reassuring. It tells the body you're not being forced. You're not in danger. You're allowed to open on your terms. Because arousal doesn't come from pressure. It comes from presence. And pain comes when we ignore the body's hesitation, when we try to get it over with, when we move faster than comfort can keep up with. So take your time, undress slowly, touch without rushing to the goal. Look, listen, breathe, and most importantly, check in. Ask questions like, how does this feel? Do you want to pause? Are you okay? Want to keep going? These aren't interruptions, they're intimacy. The body is a door that only opens when it feels safe. This is what no one told you in health class. The vaginal canal is not just a passive tunnel. It's surrounded by muscles that tense up when anxious. If those muscles feel forced open, they resist. And that's where the pain comes from. Taking it slow tells those muscles, you're in control. You have time. This isn't danger, it's discovery. For those with penises, slowness is just as powerful. It allows arousal to build. It creates connection. It reduces pressure to perform. Slowness benefits everyone. It's how trust gets built in the body. It's how arousal rises naturally. It's how consent is maintained, not just given once, but continually reaffirmed through tone, rhythm, softness. Let go of the perfect first time. If you're rushing because you want to get it right, pause. You're already doing the most important thing, being present. No first time is flawless. There might be awkwardness, there might be laughter, there might be moments of uncertainty. That doesn't make it wrong. That makes it real. Taking it slow allows for those moments to be okay. It removes the panic. It replaces pressure with peace. You don't need to know everything. You just need to be attuned to the look in their eyes, to the breath in their chest, to the way their body moves or doesn't. Because the body tells you everything, if you're slow enough to notice. Respect over rhythm. Connection over completion. If you need to stop, stop. If you want to go back to kissing, do that. If something hurts, say so. If you're unsure, pause. Lube makes it smooth. Slowness makes it safe. And safety is the real foundation of pleasure. So here's the truth. Lubrication and slowness aren't about technique. They're about tenderness. They say, I see your body. I'm not here to conquer it. I'm here to care for it. They turn a first time from something that must be survived into something that can be remembered with softness. Because the goal is not just to do it. The goal is to feel whole in the process, to feel seen, respected, and unhurried. And when you get that right, it might not be perfect, but it will be true. Creating an environment of safety. First-time sex isn't just about the people involved. It's about the place, the atmosphere, the energy, the invisible feeling in the room that says, you're safe here. Because bodies don't open in danger, hearts don't soften under pressure, and trust doesn't bloom where silence and uncertainty linger in the air. If the mind feels unsafe, the body shuts down, no matter how loving the touch, no matter how patient the partner. That's why creating an environment of safety is not optional. It's essential. Not just safety from physical harm, but emotional safety, mental safety, the kind of safety that wraps around you like a blanket and whispers, you are allowed to just be here, as you are. Let's build that together. Physical space matters. Let's start with the obvious. Where you choose to have your first experience can shape everything. Is it private? Is it quiet? Is it clean, warm, and undisturbed? Do you feel in control of the environment, or are you just going with it because the opportunity appeared? Don't let the first time happen in the backseat of shame or in a room that smells like panic. You deserve softness. You deserve comfort. Dim the lights. Play music that calms you. Have water nearby. Use clean sheets. Make it feel like a moment, not a mistake, because the external space reflects the internal one. And when you treat the moment with care, you remind yourself, this matters. Shh. Emotional space is everything. You can be in the safest room in the world and still feel unsafe in your own skin. If the emotional energy isn't right, creating safety means knowing that your yes is real, that it's not being coerced, that you're not giving your body out of fear, guilt, or obligation. Ask yourself, can I stop at any point and still feel respected? Will they listen if I say slow down or not tonight? Do I feel like I'm enough, even if nothing sexual happens? If the answer is no, that's not a safe space. That's a red flag dressed as romance. Emotional safety means being with someone who honors your entire being, not just your body. Nasher, your nervous system needs calm, not chaos. The human body can't experience pleasure in survival mode. It's not designed that way. When you feel anxious, when you hear footsteps outside the door, when your heart is racing from fear, not excitement, your body pulls back. Muscles tighten. Breathing shallows. Desire evaporates. This isn't weakness, it's biology. Your body is protecting you. Creating a safe environment means calming your nervous system. Breathe together. Make eye contact. Check in. Speak in soft tones. Say, you're safe, and mean it. Because the sexiest thing in the world is safety. Silence isn't safety. Some people mistake quietness for comfort, but silence when it comes from fear is dangerous. You should be able to speak without trembling, to laugh without shame, to pause without fear of being rejected. If you're holding your breath, if you feel like you're walking on eggshells, if you can't say what's on your mind, that space is not safe. A safe environment is one where your voice is welcome, where your no isn't questioned, where your boundaries aren't pushed, where your emotions aren't inconvenient. The power of a gentle presence. Sometimes, the safest space isn't about where you are, it's about who you're with. A gentle presence says, we don't have to rush. We can stop if you're unsure. I care more about you than about the act. When you feel that, truly feel it, your body knows. It relaxes, it softens, it trusts, because you're not being hunted, you're being held. A partner who listens, waits, checks in, and prioritizes your peace is a partner who creates sanctuary, not just a setting. Safety means nothing to hide, nothing to prove. The safest environments are the ones where masks fall off, where you don't need to perform, where you're not expected to look or sound like a fantasy. You can laugh, you can ask questions, you can change your mind. You can say, that feels weird, or can we just cuddle instead? And it won't break the moment. It will make it, because safety doesn't ruin intimacy, it deepens it. Plan for the after. 2, creating a safe space doesn't end after it's done. That's when it matters even more. Can you talk afterward? Will you still be held if things were awkward? Is the space warm enough for emotions to exist? Because vulnerability doesn't disappear once the physical part is over. It expands. And if you can share that space in the quiet afterglow, in the rawness of post-intimacy, then you've done something brave and beautiful. So create your space. Don't just fall into the moment. Build it with intention, with softness, with your voice, with your boundaries, with your whole heart. Because first-time sex isn't just about what happens physically. It's about how deeply you felt seen, how safe you were to show up as you. No pressure, no pretending, no pain, just presence. And when you create that kind of environment, whether it leads to sex or not, you've already experienced intimacy at its most powerful form. 8, redefining virginity and first-time narratives. Virginity, a word heavy with meaning, heavy with myths, heavy with silence, whispered in locker rooms, preached from pulpits, used as a weapon, used as a prize. But here's the truth. Virginity is not a medical event. It's not a milestone on your moral resume. It's not a switch that turns you from pure to impure. It's not something that breaks. It's not something you lose. And it's certainly not something someone else can take from you. Virginity is a story, one written for centuries, by people who never asked what it felt like to carry that weight. One used to define worth by what had or hadn't happened between your legs. One passed down through cultures, religions, media, and fear. But the good news is this: you can rewrite the story. Where did this word even come from? The concept of virginity wasn't born in science. It wasn't born in medicine. It was born in control. Historically, a woman's virginity was tied to property, to honor, to family name, to marriage deals. A girl was untouched, and that meant she was valuable. Once she had sex, her value was considered less, no matter the context. And this lie has echoed for centuries. Even now, in modern times, we still hear, save it, don't give it away, make it special, protect your innocence. But your value isn't in your body's history. Your worth isn't determined by what has or hasn't happened in a bedroom. You are not a product. You are not a glass of spilled milk. You are not a flower that withers once touched. You are a person, and you are whole, always. The myth of the first time. We're taught that there's only one first time, that it's a single event, usually penetrative, often heteronormative, always life-altering. But what if your first time didn't go that way? What if it wasn't penetrative? What if it wasn't with someone of the opposite sex? What if it wasn't consensual? What if it was confusing or painful or unfinished? Does that mean you're not a virgin? Or that you are? Who decides? The answer is you do. Because sex isn't a one-size-fits-all checklist. Intimacy doesn't start with penetration, and your experience is not invalid because it doesn't match a script written centuries ago. Maybe your real first time was the first time you felt safe, the first time you said yes with your whole body, the first time you were seen, fully, gently, completely. That's what matters, not what went where, not what bled or didn't bleed, not what anyone else thinks. The hymen is not a seal of purity. Let's get medical for a moment. The hymen, a thin membrane at the vaginal opening, has been wrongly mythologized for centuries, as if it were some sacred seal, only broken by sex. But in truth, the hymen can stretch or tear from exercise, from inserting a tampon, from dancing, biking, horseback riding, and many people are born with little to no hymenal tissue at all. Some bleed during their first time, many don't. So if the hymen isn't proof, and bleeding isn't proof, what then are we measuring? Nothing, because there was never anything to measure in the first place. Stop calling it losing your virginity. You didn't lose anything. You're not less than. You didn't hand over a piece of yourself that can't be reclaimed. Let's change the language. Instead of saying, I lost my virginity, try, I shared a moment. I made a choice. I explored intimacy. I stepped into something new. Because language creates emotion, and emotion creates memory. Why wrap a human experience in terms that sound like failure? Say what it really was, not what the world told you to say. Nash, virginity doesn't define you. Your values do. You are not more pure because you waited. You are not more experienced because you didn't. You are not better, worse, smarter, dumber, freer, or more trapped. You are you, and your choices around intimacy should reflect your values, not your fear, not someone else's judgment, not societal timelines. Your body is yours, your path is yours, and your story is still being written. The real first time is the one you chose with your whole self, not when you were pressured, not when you were unsure, not when you didn't know how to say no, not when you weren't ready, but when you were calm, when you felt safe, when your yes was enthusiastic, informed, and free. That's the real first time. It may not be the first chronologically, but it's the first that counts. So if you're waiting, wait for that. And if your past doesn't hold that, give yourself grace. Because the healing doesn't come from erasing the past. It comes from rewriting its meaning. You are not defined by your history, only by your humanity. The world may try to shame you, to measure your worth in invisible milestones, to label you as virgin or not, as if your spirit could be reduced to a checkbox. But your soul is too expansive for that. Your dignity is too deep. Virginity is not a line in the sand. It's a myth built to control. And you are here to be free. Free to explore. Free to wait. Free to change your mind. Free to reclaim your story. Because the truth is, you never lost anything. You only ever gained wisdom. And you never needed to prove a thing to be enough. Virginity as a social construct, not a medical fact. Virginity. One word. So much weight. Whispers in classrooms. Pressure in relationships. Silence at dinner tables. Shame behind closed doors. But here's the secret no one tells you. Virginity isn't a medical condition. It's not something doctors diagnose. It's not written in your DNA. It's a social construct, an idea, a myth created by humans, not biology. And once you understand that, you begin to reclaim power over a story that was never yours to carry. What science actually says. Let's strip away the superstition and get honest. There is no medical definition of virginity. You can't test for it. You can't scan for it. You can't see it on an X-ray. Doctors can't look at someone and say, this person is a virgin, because there's nothing in your body that proves it. The hymen? Not reliable. Some people are born with little to no hymenal tissue. Others stretch theirs during sports, exercise, or even daily movement. Some people bleed their first time. Many don't. There's no seal. There's no proof. There's no universal biological event that marks the transition from virgin to not. It's all narrative, not science. So where did it come from? Virginity was invented, yes, invented to control. In ancient times, a woman's purity was tied to ownership. She wasn't seen as a person. She was property, and her body was proof of family honor, marriage deals, economic status. If a bride wasn't a virgin, she could be rejected, beaten, even killed. All based on an idea, not a fact. Not truth, just power, wearing the mask of morality. And this idea stuck. It mutated over centuries, spreading through cultures and religions, taking root in classrooms, bedrooms, and belief systems. Now, even today, young people are told, save yourself. Don't be damaged. Wait until you're worthy. But worthy of what? Worthy of being loved? Of being respected? Of being chosen? When did your worth become tied to what someone else hasn't touched? Virginity reinforces double standards. Here's the other thing about this so-called virtue. It's not applied equally. Boys are often celebrated for losing it. They're told, be a man, conquer, experience. Girls are told, protect it, preserve it, be clean. And people outside of this binary, often erased from the conversation completely. So what are we really protecting? Not health, not truth, but a system that teaches boys to dominate and girls to be ashamed of their own desire. This isn't biology, it's conditioning, and it's time to break it. Hair virginity doesn't define your health, morals, or worth. You can be sexually active and still be kind, still be gentle, still be whole. You can be a virgin and still feel broken if the world has made you feel like your worth hangs on it. Sex doesn't make you impure. Innocence isn't erased by touch, and no part of your anatomy holds your identity. Let's stop tying humanity to hymens. Let's stop pretending that something as complex as intimacy can be reduced to a single event, a single moment, a single label. Virginity erases too many realities. What about those who were assaulted? Those whose first experience wasn't consensual? Are they not virgins? Are they impure? No. They are survivors, still whole, still worthy, still deserving of love, respect, and softness. What about queer experiences? What about intimacy that doesn't involve penetration? Is that not sex? Is that not real? Virginity, as defined by society, erases nuance. It erases people. It erases experiences that don't fit the heteronormative patriarchal mold. And that erasure is violence in disguise. Your body is not a line to be crossed. Here's what's real. You are not a threshold. You are not a status. You are not a prize to be won or a record to be broken. Your body is your home. It does not change value based on what has or hasn't been done to it. If you've never been touched, you are enough. If you've shared yourself with someone, you are enough. If you're healing from trauma, you are enough. Because worth is not conditional. Love is not transactional. And virginity is not a real thing. Reclaiming the narrative. If you must define virginity, let it be this. Open quote, virginity is the first time I made a choice with full agency. Virginity is when I felt emotionally ready. Virginity is when I connected, not when I performed, close quote. Or better yet, let it disappear. Because you don't need it. What you need is truth, freedom, safety, and permission to live your life on your terms. So yes, virginity is a construct, not a fact, not a flaw, not a value system etched in your skin. And once you realize that, the fear begins to lift. The shame starts to melt. And in its place, power. Power to choose, power to speak, power to love yourself before anyone else ever does. The problem with the term losing virginity, losing your virginity, it sounds simple, casual, cultural, expected. But take a moment, listen again. That one word, losing, holds centuries of guilt, fear, pressure, and quiet grief. Because when you lose something, it implies it's gone forever. It implies you had something pure, and now it's broken, ruined, tainted. But sex isn't a theft, it's not a robbery. And virginity isn't a key that unlocks your worth. So why do we call it losing? Why does this word echo in classrooms, on social media, in movies, in whispered teenage conversations, as if something sacred has been taken? The truth? We don't lose anything. We experience, we choose, we evolve, we grow. And that language, this language, needs to change. The word losing triggers shame by default. The human mind is wired to respond to loss with sorrow, grief, fear, panic. So when we tell young people that sex equals loss, we're implanting the emotion of grief into something that should be rooted in connection. Think about it. We lose things we love. We lose games. We lose battles. We lose dignity. So when virginity is framed as something to lose, it creates an emotional formula. Open quote, sex equals loss. Intimacy equals something is now missing. I am no longer whole, close quote. And once that equation is planted, especially early, it becomes hard to unlearn. Girls internalize it as shame. Boys may internalize it as conquest. And people across the spectrum start measuring their worth against a word that was never neutral to begin with. No one talks about the word's emotional weight. I lost my virginity. How many people say those words while carrying confusion in their eyes? Not because the moment was painful or wrong, but because the language itself made it feel that way. You'll hear things like, open quote, I lost it too soon. I lost it and I regret it. I wish I hadn't given it away, close quote. Not, open quote. I shared something important. I discovered something new about myself. I made a conscious choice, close quote, because the word losing plants the idea that what happened was a mistake, even if it wasn't, even if it was loving, gentle, safe. That one word still whispers, you gave something up, and that changes how we remember it. It reinforces purity culture without saying it out loud. You don't need to bring religion into the room for purity culture to linger. Just say, she lost her virginity. Suddenly, she's not pure. Suddenly, she's on the other side of a line. Suddenly, she's changed. But changed into what? She's still kind, still brilliant, still valuable. She didn't lose anything. She didn't hand over her humanity. And yet society keeps telling her, you're different now. Not in a celebratory way, in a reduced way, in a way that says you're worth a little less, all because of one word. It ignores the possibility of empowered first experiences. Imagine this. Two people make a conscious, mutual, enthusiastic choice. They talk, they trust, they're ready, they share something intimate, and afterward, they feel closer, more alive, more free. Why should we call that losing anything? Why isn't it described as gaining knowledge, gaining experience, gaining connection? Because the term losing virginity doesn't leave room for growth. Only regret, only fear, only finality. But sex, when safe and chosen, is not the end of something. It's the beginning of self-discovery. Let's stop talking about it like a funeral and start treating it like an awakening. It doesn't apply to everyone. Losing virginity is also painfully exclusionary. It assumes one act, penetrative heterosexual intercourse. Anything else? Apparently doesn't count. So where does that leave queer people? Trans bodies? Those whose intimacy doesn't fit inside a binary? It leaves them invisible, uncounted, invalidated. It tells them, you haven't had real sex, even if their experience was more intimate, more vulnerable, more sacred than anything a textbook describes. Because once again, this idea wasn't built to reflect reality. It was built to uphold systems of control, of patriarchy, of silence. Let's rewrite the script. What if we stopped saying, I lost my virginity, and started saying, I had my first sexual experience. I shared intimacy for the first time. I made a choice with someone I trusted. I discovered a new side of myself. What if we allowed people to name their experience instead of placing it in a box that says you were whole and now you're not? Because that's the real danger of this phrase. It quietly tells us that once we cross that line, we can't come back. But you can. You always can. You can heal. You can learn. You can reframe the story. You can choose who you are again and again. Nothing was lost. You are still you. If your first time wasn't what you hoped, that's okay. If it was confusing or painful, that's okay too. If you carry regret, you don't have to carry shame because you didn't lose anything. Not your worth, not your purity, not your identity. You are still you, still whole, still deserving of love, joy, pleasure, and peace. The only thing we ever needed to lose was the word losing itself, focusing on experience over status. We've spent too long treating sex like a scoreboard, counting notches, labeling people, dividing them into virgins and non-virgins as if those two words define the entire landscape of a person's worth. But you are not a status. You are not a statistic. You are not a number, a label, or a title passed around by people who never lived inside your skin. You are a story, a soul, a human being having experiences, not collecting badges. It's time we move the conversation away from, have you done it or not, and asked something much deeper. How did it feel? Was it safe? Was it your choice? Did you feel respected? Because what truly matters, what always mattered, was not status, but the experience itself. Status is shallow. Experience is human. Let's be honest. Most of what society teaches about sex revolves around image. Who's done it? Who hasn't? Who's still pure? Who's experienced? We use these words like measurements. We put them on people like invisible tags. And all of it creates a quiet pressure. Open quote. To hurry up, to catch up, to fit in, or to hold back in fear of giving it away. Close quote. But that's not connection. That's comparison. And comparison has nothing to do with intimacy. Intimacy isn't something you earn. It's not a level you unlock. It's a moment of truth between two people, where presence replaces performance and labels become irrelevant. Experience is messy, beautiful, and yours alone. The first time you share yourself sexually isn't always perfect. In fact, it rarely is. There may be nerves, laughter, awkwardness, uncertainty, or even stillness and silence. And that's okay, because experience isn't supposed to be a trophy. It's supposed to be real. Status tells you what category you're in. Experience tells you what it felt like, and that difference is everything. You could be someone who had sex and still feels disconnected, or someone who hasn't and still knows what it means to be deeply intimate in other ways. Experience is not defined by what your body did. It's defined by what your heart held in that moment. The danger of status thinking. When you focus on status, sex becomes a transaction, something you gain or lose, a way to prove something to others. And that's where damage begins. People rush into intimacy not because they're ready, but because they feel behind. Others hold on to their virgin title not because it reflects their values, but because they're afraid of judgment. And those in between, often left confused, boxed in, and unsure what category they even belong to. Status thinking traps people in either/or cages. Experience sets them free. Ask the right questions. We need a new set of questions when we talk about first-time sex. Not, open quote, are you still a virgin? Did it hurt? Was it with someone special? Was it the right age? Close quote. But instead, open quote, did you feel emotionally safe? Was your consent full and free? Did you feel seen and cared for? Would you do it the same way again? Close quote. Because intimacy is not about checking boxes. It's about how you felt while living the moment. That's the kind of reflection that leads to wisdom. That's the kind of memory worth holding on to. Let go of the pressure to define yourself by milestones. Society loves milestones. The first kiss, the first time, the first real relationship. But life doesn't always move in straight lines. Some people have sex and feel nothing. Some wait for years and still aren't sure. Some discover their sexuality late. Others navigate it early but slowly. And all of it is valid. There's no fixed age you're supposed to do anything. There's no finish line. There's no prize for arriving first, and no shame in arriving later. What matters is not when or how, but why, and how it made you feel inside. Experience honors choice. Status demands conformity. When you focus on experience, you begin to ask, open quote, was I in control of that choice? Did it reflect who I really am? Did I feel empowered or pressured? Was I guided by my values or by someone else's expectations? Close quote. That's where growth begins. That's where confidence is born. Because when sex becomes about experience, you step into your power. You make choices based on your timeline, your desires, and your truth, not society's checklist. You are not behind. You are not ahead. You are right on time. There is no rush. There is no late. There is only ready. Ready isn't about age. Ready is about clarity. If you're not ready, your body will tell you. If you are, your heart will feel calm. If you're unsure, pause and reflect. Don't perform. No matter where you are in your journey, you are not defined by a status. You are defined by how you live, how you choose, and how you feel. The real goal isn't losing virginity, it's gaining understanding. Understanding your boundaries, understanding your comfort, understanding your desires, understanding your voice. Because that's what experience teaches. Not just what sex is, but what you want, what you need, what you deserve. And when that's your focus, you walk into intimacy with power, not pressure, with awareness, not anxiety, with presence, not performance. So let go of the scoreboard, let go of the status, let go of the idea that a single label defines your worth, and step into the experience. All of it, fully, honestly, freely, because that's the only thing that was ever real, and the only thing that ever mattered. You deserve truth, not fear. So, after all the stories, the silence, the half-truths told in locker rooms, the myths passed down like heirlooms, the pressure to wait, and the pressure to hurry up, we arrive here, at the real truth. Sex isn't a line you cross. It's not a label you wear. It's not a prize, or a punishment, or a moment that defines your value. It's a choice, a deeply human, deeply personal moment of exploration that belongs to no one else but you. It doesn't have to hurt. It doesn't have to bleed. It doesn't have to feel confusing, rushed, or wrong. And if it did, if your first time was painful or empty or something you didn't really choose, that doesn't mean you're broken. That doesn't mean you're ruined. That doesn't mean you lost anything. You are still whole, still good, still worthy, because your body is not a crime scene and your past is not your prison. Let this be the truth that finally sets you free. Rewrite the narrative. Maybe your story hasn't started yet, or maybe it has, and it wasn't what you hoped. Either way, you have permission to start over, to pause, to heal, to wait, to change your mind, to ask questions, to choose again. This isn't a race. This isn't a checklist. It's a journey, and it's yours, not your parents', not your culture's, not your partner's, yours. You are not late. You are not early. You are right on time. There is no universal script, no correct age, no ideal first time. You don't need to compare your story to anyone else's. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to defend it, because every story is sacred when it is chosen in truth. The new first time. Maybe the real first time isn't when bodies come together. Maybe it's when you say, clearly, honestly, open quote, I'm ready, I feel safe, I trust this moment, I know my worth, close quote. That is when the magic happens. That is when intimacy becomes art, not anxiety. That is when sex becomes sacred, not shameful. So breathe, unclench the fear, shake off the lies, step into the truth. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not anyone else's expectations. You are a story still unfolding. And your first time, whenever and however it comes, should never be about pressure or performance or perfection. It should be about presence, peace, power, and most of all, you.